Hi everyone. In this video I'll be talking about procrastination and how to stop procrastinating and get in the flow. So I will show you 5 steps to stop procrastinating. So procrastination comes from the Latin pro, meaning forward, crastinus, till the next day. So it's a tendency and sometimes a pathological tendency to defer or postpone an action till the next day. So most of us procrastinate. Some of us procrastinate in certain areas, others in all areas. So we might procrastinate in our work, in housework, administrative work, or all at the same time. And procrastination is a plague because it's rarely satisfying to feel that we procrastinate. Usually there's this feeling deep within us, this feeling of guilt that we should be doing exactly what we are procrastinating about. Procrastination is a form of resistance to the natural flow of life. We are in resistance to our natural flow, in other words, to the call of our soul or the energy of the universe. And it is this feeling of discomfort that we feel, it comes from this resistance. So it is like the energy is blocked and so the energy accumulates. And it's very much like a stream. So when a stream of water just flows freely and there's no resistance, this is the natural flow of life. But if we put a dam of stones into the stream and we block the water, sooner or later the water will start stagnating, and if we wait long enough then this water will also become like a kind of swamp. And it is the same thing that is happening with our energy when we procrastinate. So this energy accumulates and ends up stagnating into our energy field, and so this also can be found in general in the rest of our lives. The more we procrastinate, the harder it is to get out of the vicious circle, because all these things that we are supposed to do that we always put off, the more time goes by, the less we want to get things done, because it's very much like a cluttered room where everything is piling up. The more it piles up, the less we want to enter the room and start to tidy up. So how do we stop procrastinating and get in the flow? Well, we need to know at what level of procrastination we are in our life. Are we a beginner procrastinator? Are we an expert procrastinator? A chronic procrastinator? Do we procrastinate in certain areas of our life? Do we procrastinate for example, our creative ideas? Do we procrastinate for mundane daily tasks? So it's really important just to note where and how do we procrastinate in our life. Generally, procrastination is seen as a form of laziness or apathy. But what does really hide behind that? We only need to look and feel what we feel when we procrastinate. So very often we will feel something like guilt, shame, feelings of depression sometimes. And this shows how, in fact, procrastination is completely linked to a very low self-esteem. And it is not the cause for this low self-esteem, it's actually the consequence for that. So when we devalue ourselves, when we don't believe in ourselves, when we have negative beliefs about ourselves, we tend to procrastinate. And this becomes like another brick that we add to the wall of our own negative beliefs about ourselves. So all of this ends up creating a vicious circle, and then we feel completely stuck. And if procrastination takes a very important part of our life, then we are in a form of apathy or even sometimes in a form of depression. And all these negative beliefs that we have about ourselves, so the fact that we don't love ourselves, the fact that we don't value ourselves, all these negative beliefs and negative patterns actually come from our childhood and the way that we were programmed by our parents. So for example, apathy is the lack of enthusiasm and the fact that we don't feel fulfilled for the things that we do when we take action. So apathy is the lack of enthusiasm to actually take action. And if we feel that even in the areas of our life that we usually like or we love doing, so something that brings us joy, then we can be sure that when we were children, one or both of our parents actually blocked this spontaneous enthusiasm that we were feeling. Showing enthusiasm was not welcomed. So, for example, a child feels a lot of joy and enthusiasm because he just had a great idea and he starts running around and jumping around and is really enthusiastic to share what he just came up with to his parents or one of his parents. and maybe the parent is busy or just not in the mood, and the parent will just reply, just cut it out and go back to your room now. So just right there, the enthusiasm was blocked. So this sends a signal to the child that his enthusiasm is not okay, it's not validated by the parents, so the child will start learning that he has to suppress this feeling of enthusiasm. Or the other reason might be that the child didn't receive enough support in the things that he loved to do, or the things that he felt a desire for. For example, if a child wants to take piano lessons because he feels that it's his passion to learn music, and the parents reply something like, "Why the hell are you going to take piano lessons? You don't even know how to play the recorder well, and anyway, it's far too expensive, so no." So then again, the child receives this signal that his desires and what he loves to do is not welcomed, it's not okay, and so he will learn how to suppress his desires and what brings him joy. So right there, his self-esteem plummets, and he learns that his natural, spontaneous nature is not embraced with love, and so he starts repressing it. So we understand now that when we are adults, this programming that we experienced when we were children can actually lead to procrastination, it can lead to apathy or forms of depression. So the first thing we want to do if we want to stop procrastinating is actually go look inside and start searching for these negative beliefs, these negative patterns and negative behaviors that we brought from childhood to our adulthood. The second thing we want to do to stop procrastinating is to actually be inspired by people who are in the flow. So what is it to be in the flow? Being in the flow is when we are fully aligned with our true self, our true being, our soul or higher self, whatever we want to call it. It's fully being in alignment with the energy of life, the flow of life. So we are completely in the moment, completely focused on the moment and what we are experiencing in the moment. So the ego dissolves, there's no concept, self-concept, the outside world doesn't exist anymore, and we are fully focused only on what we are doing. Time doesn't exist anymore. So it might be an athlete at the peak of his performance, it might be a musician doing a solo at a concert, it might be a painter painting on his canvas, a writer just pouring his words onto a blank page, a scientist in his lab doing his experience and being completely focused on it. So in fact, being in the flow, and we also call that being in the zone, is a form of trance. So the third thing we want to do to stop procrastinating is to do to-do lists, because depending on the level of procrastination in our life, there might be a lot of things that are left undone. And all of this actually clutters inside our heads. So if we write a list of all the things we need to do in priority, it is going to free a lot of space in our minds. So we do the list, a to-do list with all the things we need to do in priority, and we actually also fix a very concrete schedule to know when exactly we're going to do that. Fourthly, coming back to the present moment, because when we procrastinate, we are either in the past, I should have done that, or in the future, I should do that when. If we come back to the present moment and we ask ourselves these questions, what can I do right here, right now to reach my goals? What is the next step I can do right now? And being in the present moment is also becoming aware of all the excuses that the mind might come up with to actually prevent us from taking action. Fifthly, learn to value ourselves. So, especially after taking action, we should always congratulate ourselves for doing so. And this will give us even more motivation to get going and do even more stuff. So even for very mundane things, like for example, wow, I just did the dishes today, wow, I'm really awesome. So it's just by practicing these really positive affirmations and congratulating ourselves that we will feel more and more enthusiasm to do things. And also we should take time to feel the satisfaction that we have once we do things. So when we get out of procrastination and we get more and more into the flow, we will experience more and more joy because it is inseparable from that state. We no longer feel resistance, and so things start flowing naturally into our life, and we experience more and more synchronicities and more doors opening up for us. So of course it's easy to imagine that we might feel joy for when we are in a creative state, for example, but we can also feel this joy and this presence even in more mundane tasks. We only need to focus our presence in the moment and give meaning to the moment. When we create a momentum of movement by taking action, everything becomes easier in our life. But being in the flow doesn't necessarily mean always being in action, because meditation is also being in the flow. But it is true that action leads to action, and if we support ourselves, if we congratulate ourselves, if we encourage ourselves, then we will feel more and more gratification, fulfillment and satisfaction for all the actions that we take and the fact that we get things going. So in the end, what we feel, what we experience is simply the fact that we are aligned with our true selves. We are aligned with the flow of the universe, the energy of the universe. And this can only bring more ease, more satisfaction, more fluidity, and something, a kind of life that is effortless. Sat Nam.